Hi, welcome to another edition of Counterpunch, the show that reveals the unfolding world communist revolution. Please like the show, share the show, and subscribe to Epoch TV. Thanks very much. Well, we're in Pride Month. We have to worship everything gay this month. If you're in a business, if you're in a government department, you have to display the flags and show solidarity. That's what you do.
Last year, we hosted this event, and the message is simple. Pride is back at the White House.
The gay movement that we're worshipping here is really a minority of a minority. The gay movement, as we know it, no more represents homosexual people than the Marxist Black Lives Matter represents black people, or the Communist Party of China represents Chinese people. But it's a very politically powerful movement. This tiny movement is more politically powerful than is American Christianity, I would bet. So why is it so powerful? Well, it's powerful because the gay movement is organized on Marxist-Leninist principles. It's scientific and it's revolutionary. It shocks me that most Western conservatives and patriots and Christians have no idea that the gay rights movement is a Marxist movement, that it's a communist movement. They haven't made that connection, but it's so overwhelmingly obvious. For centuries, homosexuality was stigmatized and often actively persecuted around the world. Some cultures were more tolerant than others, but generally homosexuals had a hard time. And like other oppressed minorities, they were ripe for revolution. But it's only really in the last 70 years, since the mid-20th century, that homosexuals have been organized as a political force. Now, the founder of political homosexuality, what we now know as the gay rights movement, was a Southern California activist named Harry Hay. Born in England in 1912, I believe, he came to maturity in the 1930s in Southern California and was very much involved in the theatre and with labor activism. He was recruited into the Communist Party by his then lover, Will Geer. And if that name sounds slightly familiar, just remember Grandpa Walton in the Walton TV series. That's Will Geer. In 1950, Harry Hay founded the Mattachine Society. It was named after the masks that were worn in medieval plays, apparently. And it was a state-registered network of gay support groups that eventually spread all over North America. In 1948, Hay had also founded the Bachelors Anonymous, and that was to rally homosexual support for the communist-backed presidential campaign of Henry Wallace. Now, the Mattachine Society grew all over the country, and eventually Harry Hay was kicked out of it because of his communism. It was too much of a liability. Around the same time, Harry Hay left the Communist Party, not because he was no longer a communist, but because it was too dangerous for both movements to be associated with each other. Now, these networks, started by the Mattachine Society, laid the foundation for the modern gay rights movement, and this exploded after the famous Stonewall riot in New York in 1969. In 1979, Harry Hay founded another group. It was the gay spiritual group, the Radical Fairies. In the 1980s, Harry Hay was part of the Rainbow Coalition. This was a communist coalition behind Jesse Jackson when he ran for president in 1984 and 1988, mainly run by Maoists from the League of Revolutionary Struggle, Line of March, Communist Workers' Party, etc. But Harry Hay founded the Lavender Caucus of the Rainbow Coalition. Around the same time, Harry Hay was very active in NAMBLA. That is the North American Man-Boy Love Association, the very first public pedophile advocacy group in North America. But by the 1990s, Harry Hay had returned to open communism when he joined the Gay Caucus of Committees of Correspondence. This was a breakaway splinter group from the Communist Party USA that was sort of followed more Gorbachevian bent rather than the more Stalinist bent of the Communist Party. The pattern was the same all over the Western world. In Britain, you had Peter Purton, who is one of the country's leading gay activists for decades. He is the Trade Union Council's LGBT officer and has led many gay initiatives through the union movement, through governments, both nationally and internationally. In 1976, when he was a young Trotskyist in the International Marxist Group, Putin helped found the Labour Campaign for Lesbian and Gay Rights, which had a big influence both on the Labour Party and the union movement. Peter Tatchell is a leader of Outrage and the UK Green Party. In 1973, Tatchell went to East Germany with a delegation of radicals to the World Festival of Students and Youth. Now, this is the big international communist gathering of young people. They hold them every 3 or 4 years and still do all over the socialist bloc. This festival was held in Berlin, and it was there that Peter Tatchell organised the first gay rights protest ever held in a socialist country, in a communist bloc country. This caused a bit of a stir because although the communists in the West were actively promoting homosexuality, at the time homosexuality was still heavily repressed behind the Eastern Bloc. Because of course the logic was we want to use homosexuality to break down the families in the West, but we sure don't want that happening in our territory. Which is why a lot of American social conservatives now love Vladimir Putin, because he's been pretty tough on the gay rights movement in Russia. That's not because he's opposed to the gay rights movement. He just doesn't want it in Russia. He wants to keep Russia together, and he wants to still foster that movement in the West to break down the West, and so his country can come out on top. The communists were happy to promote the gay rights movement in the West, not so much in their home turf. And that still applies. You see that in communist China now. They're cracking down on the gay rights movement and effeminate men, in their own words, in China. They're getting ready for war, and they don't want homosexuality in their military. So Liberation Road, who gave us Black Lives Matter for one of their many fronts and one of the major forces in introducing the he, her pronouns that people go through these days, that all came out of the Marxist movement. This gender fluidity, the multiple pronouns that we're supposed to be using, that is all of Marxist origin. And Liberation Road boasted about 20% of its membership is gay. They deliberately recruit gay members. Other groups like DSA and Communist Party USA are actively recruiting homosexual members, something that they wouldn't have done so much many years ago. The thing is this, the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. The communists are involved in the gay movement, not to advance the rights of any sexual minority or to help homosexuals. It's to use homosexuality and homosexuals as a wedge to divide families, to break down the culture, to destroy military discipline, to do everything they can to weaken American capitalist culture. It is completely a revolutionary movement. That is not to say that all homosexuals buy into this. I've met many conservative homosexuals, many patriotic homosexuals, but the gay movement as we know it, the LGBTQ movement, is completely Marxist-driven. Its purpose is revolutionary, and its goal is to destroy Western society and replace it with socialism. So should we really be promoting Gay Pride Month? Should we really be celebrating the rainbow flag? It's a symbol of the destruction of our society, the deliberate destruction of everything we hold dear. So I hope this has given you a little bit of food for thought and maybe make you look at the gay rights movement in a different way. It's a movement like any other that is using people for revolutionary goals. And we should expose it for what it is, because those goals are completely destructive. So please pass this show on, share it around. This is Pride Month, so let's just get this out here, to tell the truth about the movement that Pride Month supposedly represents. So thanks for watching. Please like the show, share the show, and subscribe to Epoch TV. God bless America, and God bless everyone who loves liberty. Thank you.